What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, my name is Eric Cartafalsa. I trained myself into the low 90s, and now I help pitchers all over the world make the same transformation. And all we really do on this channel is talk about throwing 90 miles per hour. So if you don't want to hear about throwing 90, then click away. In this video today, we're going to be going over the biggest differences that I see in pitchers stuck in the 82 to 85 range versus the pitchers who are throwing 90 plus. After coaching pitchers for years and coaching close to 1,000 pitchers at this point, these are the same things that I see come up with guys who are stuck in 82 to 85 versus the guys who are throwing 90 plus. But I don't want to waste any more time here. Let's get right into it. Okay, so when we look at guys who are stuck throwing in the 82 to 85 mile per hour range, the first thing that we see is they train like a bodybuilder instead of like an athlete. Now, what does this mean? Okay, lifting culture is extremely popular today, and that is fantastic. I think everybody should be going to the gym or prioritizing their health and fitness in some way. But there is a degree of specificity when it comes to training to throw harder. Okay, so going in the gym and trying to look like Chris Bumstead and get a pump and get this huge chest and back, it's good, but it's not necessarily going to translate to you throwing harder. Okay, am I saying that training to throw harder is going to mean you look like crap and aren't aesthetic? No, I'm not saying that at all. But we want to be doing things in the weight room that translate to the mound. Okay, so training the same movement patterns, training explosively, and doing things that actually will help you throw harder. So the next thing we see is they throw plyos more than a real baseball. Now, plyos have completely taken over pitching development in the past 10 to 12 years. I remember in high school, I used to throw them all the time, and a lot of you watching this are doing the majority of your mechanical drills or even the majority of your throwing with plyo balls. And this is an issue for two reasons. Number one, a plyo is different than a baseball, okay? It's a different weight, a different texture, a different feel, okay? And it flies completely different in the air, okay? You are taking a rubber ball with no seams and that's filled with sand and then trying to apply those same patterns with a 5-ounce baseball. And a lot of the time, it's really hard to translate those patterns because the movements that you create, in your brain when you're throwing plyos, that's a completely separate file than throwing a baseball, okay? Because your brain is smart. And when it comes to motor learning, the patterns that you have with a plyo ball are going to show up different than your patterns with a baseball, okay? So we want to be training all of our drills and pretty much all of our throwing with a baseball. There's nothing that you can do with a plyo ball that you can't do with a baseball. And the second reason is because a lot of the times you're throwing plyos into a net or a fence or a wall that's 5 to 10 feet in front of you. And what happens with a lot of guys is they'll throw the plyo ball, way too high or throw it way too low to the left, to the right. There's no real sense of feedback in terms of where the ball is going. Now, this is an issue, and it's an issue because you're creating bad movement patterns. You're creating bad tendencies with a plyo ball when you could just be doing the same drills with a baseball to a partner and get real feedback when it comes to these drills or whatever you're trying to work on with your mechanics, okay? So guys that are stuck in the 82 to 85 mile per hour range are obsessed with throwing plyos, and we don't want to do this, okay? So the next thing that kind of goes hand in hand with throwing plyos is they have so many drills they're doing that they overthink and become tight, okay? Let me know if this sounds familiar to any of you, okay? You are trying to work on, say, your lead leg block, and you're doing all these different drills, maybe with a plyo, maybe not with a plyo, maybe with a med ball, and you're thinking of 12 different things at the same time, and you have 14 different drills for one mechanical inefficiency, right? So what this does is it starts to make you overthink, right? Think about your brain as a computer, okay? If a computer has a bunch of different tabs open, probably not going to be able to run as quick, okay? But if you only have 1 to 2 tabs open, then it's going to be much easier for that computer to process information, okay? So all of the drills, all of the cues, they represent the million different tabs that you have open in your mind, which is why you overthink and move slow, versus having 1 or 2 drills that directly apply to what you need and having those open in your brain. It's going to cause you to move much cleaner and overthink far less, okay? Moving on. They try to copy the routines of other pitchers, okay? Now, I understand there is a ton of information out there. There's a lot to go off of, okay? You might copy your favorite big leaguer. You might copy the guy on your team who's already throwing 90. And the problem is that what applies to them doesn't necessarily apply to you. Now, there is merit, and it's, understandable that you want to have something to go off of. You probably work hard and want to throw harder, but you don't have anything to work off of. So you default to copying the routines of other people. And, just circling back to the main point, that doesn't work because what applies to them does not apply to you. Now, if we look at 2 different pitchers, we'll say Garrett Cole and Aroldis Chapman. Both of them throw 100, okay? But they move in completely different ways, okay? Now, it is the same with you when it comes to me, when it comes to the guy you're trying to copy, okay? None of us are moving the same way, all right? So trying to copy somebody else's routine, trying to copy somebody else's mechanics probably won't work for you, okay? And then they think that in-person lessons 1 to 2 times a week will fix their problems, okay? And this is one of the most common things that I see. I hear of guys all the time going to their in-person pitching coach 1 to 2 times a week, and they think that's the answer. But the problem is they've been doing that for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and their velocity's only moved a little bit. And the reason being is because you're putting your development into 1 to 2 hours a week, okay? I understand you might be doing things outside of lessons, but again, you're not getting feedback during those days. You have no communication with your coach besides when you go to see them in person, okay? And even then, you're limited on the amount of time you can actually put in work. And, God forbid your coach isn't on his game that day. Maybe he's worrying about some other stuff, then he's not going to be able to give you the attention that you need, okay? And that's just the reality, I used to give in-person pitching lessons, and I stopped because I realized that I was able to give way more feedback and get guys way better results if I had communication with them 7 days a week. So if you want to learn more about my program and work with me one-on-one, you can click that first link in the description below. But moving on, okay? They neglect sleep and nutrition. Now, guys, I understand you might be in high school or college, or maybe even you're in pro ball, and maybe your living situation isn't great. Maybe the food you have access to isn't optimal, but we still need to go out of our way to make these better choices, okay? There is always a way to make what you're doing better. There's always a way to eat healthier. There's always a way to get better sleep. And sleep is honestly a huge one that I see guys having trouble with because, they're staying up late till 3 o'clock in the morning. They're playing Fortnite or whatever. I don't know if kids play Fortnite anymore, but you get what I'm trying to say. They're doing things that are causing them to stay up late and crack into the vital time needed in bed for you to recover, okay? If you're not recovering, you're not getting better. You can't grow muscle. You can't adapt and make your changes that you need to if you're only getting 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep, okay? We want to aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep, all right? And then moving on, they have a huge ego and don't think they need help. I was in your shoes once, okay? I thought that I could figure it out all on my own, which is probably why I got a Division I scholarship pulled for me when I was 17 and didn't throw 90 until years later, okay? Guys think that they can just figure it all out on their own. They're going to watch all this video. They're going to do all this research. They're going to do this, and that. And I understand where you're coming from, but when you look at it from a logical perspective, are you trained on coaching pitchers? Do you have experience doing this? Have you helped other guys throw harder? Probably not, right? So, what makes you think you can just, take your development into your own hands and figure it out all on your own? You probably can't, okay? So, those are the biggest things that I see with guys throwing 82 to 85. So, now let's talk about how to get to 90 plus and what those pitchers look like. All right, so starting off with lifting, guys throwing 90 plus, they generally have 3 to 4 focused athletic lifts per week. Now, if we look back to what we said before with 82 to 85 guys, they train like bodybuilders instead of like athletes. Guys throwing 90 don't train like bodybuilders, okay? They understand that there are specific movements in the gym that they need to be doing, specific energy systems that they need to be training, okay? And they're doing those 3 to 4 times a week. Now, you might be asking yourself why 3 to 4 times a week is the best number. And the reason is because we need to optimize for recovery, okay? We can go into the gym, we can get our stimulus, we can do all the work we need to, and then the other days of the week that you're not lifting, we need to be recovering and focusing on different things that apply to pitching velocity, okay? Things like plyometrics, things like mobility, things like rotational power work, okay? The next thing, they do all of their throwing and drills with a real baseball. Now, like we talked about before, it's very hard to get your patterns to translate with a plyo ball because those movements that you build with a plyo ball live in a separate file in your brain, okay? So doing everything with a baseball is going to make it much easier for you to translate those patterns on the mound where it matters, okay? And no one cares how hard you can throw a gray squishy ball, okay? If you can't throw this thing hard and you can't throw this thing for strikes and you can't repeat your mechanics with this thing, then guess what? It doesn't matter, okay? Guys throwing 90 are doing their work with a baseball and a baseball only. And building off that, they're doing 1 to 3 drills that directly apply to their mechanical inefficiency, okay? And the reason they're only doing 1 to 3 drills at a time is because, it goes back to this point here with the 82 to 85 guys. If you're trying to focus on a million different drills at the same time, you might make progress, but it's going to look like this, right? You're going to get a little better, a little better, a little better, a little better over a long period of time. Whereas if you just took 1 to 3 things that apply to your lowest hanging fruits when it comes to your mechanics, you would make progress a lot quicker, okay? Because you're just focusing on those things more often. It's a very, very simple process to throw hard, okay? Everybody is overcomplicating it. Guys throwing 90, they only focus on 1 to 3 drills at a time that directly apply to their mechanical inefficiencies, okay? Moving on. They understand that a magic drill or a cue is not going to fix their problems, okay? How many of you watching this are scrolling TikTok, scrolling Instagram, scrolling YouTube, and you're getting hit with 100 different drills a day? And yeah, you might try some. You might try the cue that you see. And maybe it makes you feel a little bit better. But you go to do it the next time and it doesn't work, so you abandon it and move on to the next thing. How long have you been in that cycle for? Okay? Probably a long time. And I know this because I was in the same spot as you. In high school and my early years of college, I was scrolling. I was trying to find the magic drill. I was trying to find the magic cue, and it never showed up because it doesn't exist. It does not exist, okay? Moving on. They're not scared to let it eat. Straight up. It goes back to the age-old saying, in order to throw hard, you have to throw hard, okay? And that is 100% true. If you never expose your body to what it feels like to move fast, to move at 100%, to really throw the piss out of the baseball, then it's never going to translate and you're not going to throw hard. You need to be exposing your body to these high output throws like pull downs, like long toss, like velocity bullpens, okay? So you can actually start to understand what it feels like to move at 100%. A lot of guys will, join my program and their first 100% bullpen, they'll hit a PR because before that bullpen, I'm telling them, listen, we need to go 100% here. Like, I don't care what you have to think about mentally. I don't care if you have to put a song on to try to throw hard. We need to unlock what it actually feels like to move fast, okay? And the more we can do that with smart programming, then the easier it's going to become to throw harder and then take that intensity and bring it into a game situation. So the next thing that separates 90 plus guys from 82 to 85 guys is that they understand that pitching development is extremely specific and individual. It's going to be very, very difficult for you to get to the velocity ranges that you want to if you're not doing anything individual, okay? You can go through all of my YouTube videos, you can go through all of the drills, you can go through everything, and maybe you'll make a little bit of progress, okay? I've had guys gain 5 miles per hour just from my YouTube videos alone, okay? And full transparency, I withhold about 85% of what I know when it comes to throwing harder for the guys who are actually in my program, okay? So guys who are throwing 90 plus, they understand that pitching is individual and you need specific work to make sure you unlock all you can with your body, okay? And straight up, they're willing to invest in a coach and a mentor, okay? Just going off the last point, it's going to be super hard for you to make progress if you're not getting help, okay? It's very, very easy to fall into the trap of trying the next routine, trying the next drill you see, and thinking that that's going to work. But very rarely does that actually get you to the level that you aspire to be at. And the last thing, they take nutrition and recovery extremely serious, okay? Because it's sexy to go train and throw pull downs and lift and do mobility. It's boring to focus on recovery and nutrition, but it is one of the most overlooked parts of development, okay? A lot of guys neglect this, but guys who are throwing 90 plus, they're taking their sleep seriously. They're getting 7 to 9 hours a night. They're eating sufficient protein. They're eating sufficient carbs, and they're making progress faster than the guys who aren't doing that, okay? So guys, these are the biggest changes that I see in guys throwing 82 to 85 versus guys who are throwing 90 plus, okay? Now you could take all this information and you could probably make some decent progress, but if you want my one-on-one help to break down your mechanics and build you out a custom routine tailored exactly to what you need, just like I did for these two guys in my program who are seeing crazy results and the hundreds of other pitchers that I've helped, click the first link in the description below, book a call to speak with me. We'll get on, we'll talk about what you're struggling with, where you want to get to, and how I can help.